Thank you everyone for joining us for today's meeting. We're going to give folks a few minutes before we get going. Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por estar con nosotros en esta noche. Comenzaremos la junta en un momento. Vamos a darle un segundo a todos para que se puedan conectar. Vamos a dar un minuto más. I'll give one more minute. Okay, vamos a comenzar. We're gonna get going with this meeting. So, welcome everybody. Before we start today's meeting, we are gonna share the Zoom interpretation instructions for everyone. So, antes de comenzar, voy a compartir las instrucciones para acceder a los servicios de interpretación. Voy a hacer esto primero en español y luego en inglés. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share the interpretation instructions first in Spanish and then in English. Para las personas que nos acompañan hoy a través de su tableta o iPad o de su teléfono inteligente o smartphone, favor de localizar el menú en forma de 3 puntos en la parte inferior de su pantalla. De ahí pueden seleccionar Language Interpretation o Interpretación del lenguaje y enseguida pueden seleccionar su idioma, en este caso el español o Spanish. Para todas las personas que nos acompañan a través de su computadora, pueden localizar el símbolo de interpretación en forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Hagan clic ahí y después elijan su lenguaje en español o Spanish. Ahora voy a las instrucciones en inglés. Here are the instructions in English. For all those joining us tonight through their tablets or iPads or their smartphones, please locate the menu in the form of 3 dots on your screen. You can click there and then select Language Interpretation. Then select the language of your choice. In this case, it would be English. If you're joining us through your computer, you can locate the icon in the form of a globe for interpretation at the bottom of your screen. You can click there and then select English as your language of choice. So we'll give folks a minute to connect. One thing we did want to recap, and this is more for the flow of the meeting, and I think just making sure that folks, as a quick reminder, we know that most folks are Zoom experts. You've been in a lot of these meetings, but as a good refresher, when we're in the presentations and the Q&A sections or just general updates, if you have an opportunity or want to raise your hand, have an oral comment that you want to share, the way to get to the raise hand feature is you're going to click on the React button, and then a pop-up should come up, and that should have an icon with the raise hand feature. So just as a quick reminder for folks that are connecting, do you want to have an oral comment at some point? We welcome you to raise your hand, jump in, participate in the conversations. Just a quick recap of our meeting agreements. So we want to start with one, creating space for everyone to contribute, stepping up and stepping back. Only one person speaks at a time. So using the raise hand feature is a great way to manage that for our team. Listen to each other, respect each other's opinions, knowledge, and perspective. Be conscious of time. Please speak slowly and clearly for the interpreter. So I'm going to hand it off to Brisa. Brisa is going to lead us through a roll call, and then we'll continue through the meeting. Brisa, if you can pull up a roll call.
Thanks, Christian. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Starting with Alicia Sanchez.
Presente.
Andrew Aguilar. Ashley Valentin Gonzalez.
Present.
Brent Burge.
Present.
David Ramos.
Here.
David Welch. Jack Monger.
Good evening, I'm here.
Jackie Reynoso Marquez. Janice Luna Reynoso.
I'm here in place of Janice Sayetsi Carrillo.
Thank you.
As her proxy.
Jonathan Torres.
I'm here, and Liana Rios is not. And then Andrew Aguilar indicated that he's present.
Oh, thank you. I'll make note of that. Jose Marquez Chavez. Josephine Talamantes. Keith Corey. Harry Robinson.
Hello, I'm here.
Leslie Nishihira. Brian Bernetti. Margarita Moreno.
Presente.
Mariela Rodríguez. Maritza García.
Present.
Martin Reeder. Macy Hatch. Montserrat Hernández.
Presente.
Nick Critty.
I'm here.
Philip Gibbons.
Yes, I'm here.
Roman Partida Lopez. Safia Haidari. Salvador Razo Ábrica.
Present.
Sergio Hernández. Shelby Busso. Silvia Calzada. Stephanie Yoon.
I'm here.
Vanessa Contreras. Rosalba Ayala. Carissa Ayala. Carla Nava. And Carmen Gaxiola. Okay. Okay, we have 16 present and total absent, and we have quorum. Thanks, everyone.
So I'm gonna pull up my screen again. So one thing before moving on, I think we did want to make a note that if there are any questions about CSC membership, who folks represent, I know Brisa pulled up the spreadsheet right now. We are more than happy to follow up with any questions on that representation and any questions you might have with that. So if that does come up, please reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions and share the CSC member roster list with everyone. So I'm going to move forward with our agenda. So we'll do a quick preview of this and then we'll get right into the meeting itself. So we just wrapped up our welcome. Our next item will do the approval of our past meeting notes and then tonight's agenda as well. We'll get an update from the Office of Environmental Justice. David's going to give us that update today. And then we have a presentation from Kevin at SDAPCD on incentive funding. Some good information there as well. And then we'll wrap up with public comments and then we'll adjourn the meeting. We do have a shorter meeting today, but we are planning to stay here as long as we need. I think given that we just have that presentation and if there are a lot of questions, then we'll take as many questions as we can there. So I'm going to pull up our meeting notes from the past meeting. So folks should be able to see these on screen at this moment. We did make one edit to the format. I believe we have seen a request for the roster to be included. So the attendance list is now included at the end of the notes, but then it is also then repeated in Spanish as well at the end of those notes as well. So I did want to pull those up for folks to be able to see. These are all posted on our website. So with that, I'd like to open the floor to see if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes and agenda.
Hi, Christian. This is Phil Gibbons with the Port. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 27th, 2025 with a change, however. I noticed in the minutes in the adjourning section, it says Keith Corey, City of San Diego, set the motion to adjourn. Philip Gibbons with IEA seconded it. I'm with the Port of San Diego, not IEA. So if you can make that change, I'd like to make the motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second on that? And thank you, Phil, for that.
This is Maritza. I'll second.
Thank you, Maritza. So with Philip's point, we'll see if there's any discussion for before we move to all vote. And if not, we'll move on to the vote. So all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And then we'll make that change on those notes. So with that, we're going to move forward with, and Jack, I see your hand.
Thanks, Christian. I just wanted to say that I wanted to make sure Phil knew if he ever decided he did want to become part of IEA, we'd be more than happy to have him.
I was going
Thank
to
you, Jack.
message you something like that, Jack. You stole my comedic opportunity.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Thank you, Jack. So with that, we're going to move on to our updates. So we have a couple updates coming from a few folks. We're first going to have Domingo, who is going to give us an update on AB617. So Domingo, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to provide a very quick update on the state budget for the Community Air Protection Program, also known as AB617. On Friday, June 13th, the state legislature approved a budget for the state of California. However, the legislature and governor's office are still making challenging decisions about more specific budget allocations. Specifically, allocations for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which have historically funded the majority of funds dedicated to support AB617, have been put off until as late as August. So at this moment, we don't really have information as far as how much funding will be allocated in this coming year's budget for this program. However, we will keep everybody informed. We'll keep a close eye on this item. And as soon as we learn more, we'll certainly share more information with this group. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, Domingo. And then for this second update that we have, we're going to actually call on David. David's going to give us a little bit of an update on some education topics, and we're going to do a little bit of an interactive activity. So, David, if you're ready.
Yep. Thank you, Christian. Hi, everybody. Good evening. So we wanted to bring a list of topics that we have prepared for community education. And we have a Mentimeter. There are 7 different topics. So if you can click on those links, there's one in English and one in Spanish. And if you could take a minute to quickly review that and cast your votes, we would appreciate it. And I think we also have QR codes on the slide, if we can bring those up.
Yes, and I believe Jazz also has included the link on screen or on the chat, so folks should be able to click that. There are 2 links, one for English and one in Spanish. So David, I believe I'm going to pull up the screen for folks to be able to see it as well. So if you do log on to the Mentimeter, this is what you should be seeing on screen. It's a fairly simple activity. There's a prompt. It's on a sliding scale, so you will just click on the icon and then choose. So the first item on here is like meet the SDAPCD board and learn its role. If you're not interested, if you're extremely interested, and then you'll be able to scroll through and answer all these questions. You could also skip the question, and then once you're done, click submit. David, anything else on the Mentimeter?
No, that's it. We'll come back and share with the group, what's been uplifted and connect with your team, Christian, on when we can bring these educational topics forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the link is in the chat. And David, I guess just one confirmation, folks can complete this after the meeting as well.
Yes, they should be active still.
Sounds
So
good.
yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So we'll keep going. The next, as another item that we have as a general update, I'm going to read this off screen, and then we'll see if we have anyone from CARB present and see if they have anything else to add. But I'm going to read the update from CARB. So the recent actions regarding the 3 California Clean Air Act waiver actions taken under the guise of the Congressional Review Act were illegal, as Governor Newsom and CARB Chair Randolph said. California would defend its rights to protect public health. To address the needs for immediate guidance, CARB issued this advisory to auto manufacturers, and then we have a hyperlink. Jazz just included that in the chat, so we have that link both listed in Spanish and English. I will see my participant list and see if there's anyone from CARB here and ask if there's anything else they would like to add before we move on. I'm not seeing any raised hands, but if there is anyone from CARB here, you have anything else to add, we'd appreciate your feedback. If not, we'll keep going. So for this next section, we're actually going to have David give us an update from the Office of Environmental Justice on some of the community outreach updates. So David, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thanks again, Christian. Hi, everybody, again. So We have been busy following up with folks that actually have been expressing interest in joining the CSC. And we do have 5 new members that went through an orientation already. I don't know if we see some of them here tonight, but I'd like to welcome them to the committee. Andrew, I think, is here from NASCO, Carla Nava from EHC, Carmen from EHC, Rosalba, and Carissa, who are community members. And again, just a reminder, if any of you would like to send Lauren information about any community events that you would like our office to participate in, just let us know and connect with Lauren. So thank you. That does it for the community outreach updates.
Thank you, David. And yes, welcome for all the 5 new members. I know we're going to be getting, I saw Andrew for sure on here, but for some other folks that are also going to be joining, you know, if you do see folks, I know we're in a virtual space, but as you see folks out in the community, do wave hi, you know, and welcome them to our Portside CSC group. So I'm going to keep going on presentation. So for this next section, as I noted, we are going to have a presentation on incentive funding. We have Kevin here, Kevin Bradley from SDAPCD, who's going to give us this update. Kevin will go through the presentation and we'll have plenty of time, I think, for Q&A. So if you do have questions for Kevin, you can type them in the chat or wait till we wrap up with the presentation and then we'll do a little bit of the Q&A section there as well. So Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Christian. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Buenas tardes a todos. So yeah, my name is Kevin Bradley. I supervise the grants and incentives team here at the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. And I'm providing a fairly brief update on our most recent round of funding and the applications that we received. Next slide, please. So as far as the topics that I will be covering today, I'm going to refresh everybody's memory on participatory budgeting, which we talked about probably around 6 months ago. And we did a little survey, which I will also touch on. I'll talk a little bit about the project categories that we generally fund, and then go into what the priorities were that were identified by you all CSC members back in, I think it was January, but we did a survey with you all several months ago. At that point, I'll get into the real update part of the presentation, so the applications that we received this year, and then what the next steps are in terms of the work that the team that I supervise is doing to process these applications and determine which projects we want to move forward with in terms of funding. Next slide, please. So I'm going to read this definition of participatory budgeting. So participatory budgeting enables community members to get informed about available public resources, engage in prioritizing the needs of their locality collectively, propose projects, investments, and services, and allocate resources in a community-informed and transparent way. So essentially what all that means is that we want to hear from you all in terms of what the community priorities are, you know, what types of air quality challenges the Portside community is facing. And we take that feedback and apply it to our review of all these applications that we receive for various projects. So we can determine which ones should be prioritized, which ones we really should focus on more or less based on the feedback that we receive from you all. And that's just the front end. On the back end of all that, we also come back and say, hey, these are all the projects that we're planning on funding. So this is what we're doing this year. And it kind of is a cycle that repeats itself. So once we know what projects we do this year, then next year we can say, okay, now that we did all that, what more priorities or what else should we be prioritizing, or should we continue down the road that we're going, etc. Next slide, please. So the types of projects that we typically fund include these 6 categories. So there's on-road heavy-duty vehicle replacement. Typically that's going to be in the Portside neighborhood, your drayage trucks, so the big trucks that are picking up goods at the port and distributing them all over the place. That also includes things like school buses. We also do off-road vehicle repower replacement. Repower meaning basically taking the old engine out of a vehicle and putting a new one in, or alternatively replacing the vehicle altogether. That's going to be more like construction equipment or even cargo handling equipment at the port. So the big vehicles and forklifts and things like that that are moving the real heavy stuff at the port around. Also zero emission charging and fueling infrastructure. So most often that's going to be electric vehicle charging stations. We also have the ability to fund hydrogen fueling stations. I don't believe we got any of those applications this year. Urban greening and vegetative barriers. So things like tree planting and creating green spaces. School and community center facility improvements. That's going to be mainly installing air filtration systems, whether it's in an HVAC system at a school or a library or something like that, or standalone units similar to how the PAIR program operated, if you all are familiar with that. So basically a small thing you plug into the wall that filters the air inside a room. We also have some flexibility to do projects that are related to other community emission reduction plan or SERP goals. Those require a little bit more legwork where we'll work with the state with CARB to determine which of those, or we have to write up a project plan and get that approved. So it's a little bit of a longer process, but there is an opportunity if there's projects that don't real neatly fit into these categories that are on the screen right now, but if they are connected to the SERP, then there's opportunity to potentially fund those as well. Next slide, please. So I mentioned we did a survey several months back where we asked the Portside CSC members to tell us from a list of categories, what do you want us to prioritize this year, both in terms of outreach and then once we receive applications, what projects you want us to prioritize in terms of funding. And so the three leading categories from that survey were zero emission transportation and infrastructure. So both the vehicles and the electric charging stations that charge those vehicles and allow them to operate. Urban greening and tree planting, and air filtration. Unfortunately, we did not get any applications for urban greening and tree planting, but we did get some air filtration applications and some zero emission transportation, several zero emission transportation and infrastructure applications. Next slide, please. So one last note, and this may be sort of a repeat from previous presentations, but just to kind of recap, we do have certain requirements that we have to spend some of a certain percentage of the grant funding that we get in disadvantaged communities. That includes the Portside community, also the international border community, and other disadvantaged and low income neighborhoods throughout San Diego County. But what the guidelines tell us is that we have to spend from one of our grants, which is called the Moyer Grant, we have to spend half of that money in disadvantaged communities. And then for community air protection, which is part of AB617, we have to spend 70% of that money in disadvantaged communities. Our goal is to spend 100% of that community air protection funding in the international border, Portside, and other disadvantaged communities. The only thing that would stop us from spending 100% of that money in those communities is if we just don't have enough projects to essentially burn through all that money. And so that's when we would expand to throughout other parts of the county. And then fund other projects that are still improving air quality. It's just not quite as targeted. But the amount that any individual project gets in terms of funding depends on a bunch of factors. Highlighted a few of them here. So the funding source can dictate how much money a project gets. So the Moyer Grant might be able to fund something at 50%, where community air protection can fund it at 60% or things like that. The type of project dictates how much funding it gets. So for example, a truck replacement is going to get a different amount of money than an electric charging station. One of the big metrics that we use, one of the most important metrics we use in terms of ranking projects is going to be cost effectiveness. And so essentially what that means is that cost effectiveness tells us how much pollution is being prevented from getting into the air per dollar that we spend on it. And obviously we want that to be a really high number. What that boils down to is we want our dollars to go as far as possible in terms of improving air quality. And finally, the available funds. We get these grants from the state and we can only spend what we receive. And so that's kind of the last piece of determining, we take all these factors into account and we sort projects into different buckets and then we determine, which ones we're going to move forward with. Next slide, please. So as far as the applications that we received this year in 2025, we got 165 applications. I highlighted a few categories here, which I'll get to in a moment, which are more connected to that survey I talked about. But as far as the off-road type of projects, we only got one marine vessel application, about 44 off-road applications, again, for construction equipment or cargo handling equipment, things like that. And then as far as the categories that are closer to those survey results, so zero emission transportation and air filtration, we received a large amount, 79 on-road vehicle, 21 infrastructure, and 10 facility improvements. I should mention that the applications, especially for infrastructure and facility improvements, don't necessarily that those numbers don't reflect exactly the number. So, for example, an infrastructure application could be one application for 10 charging stations or 15 charging stations. So there's a lot of variance within that number. But I just wanted to give everybody kind of a general sense of the number of applications that we received. One other thing I want to point out on this slide, well, two things. One, if you look at the dollar amount for on-road vehicle and infrastructure, you can see it's very similar, about $15.5 million requested for each of those project categories. But only about 20 infrastructure projects versus about 80 on-road vehicle replacements. And so what that tells you is that the infrastructure projects tend to be a lot more expensive than the on-road vehicle replacements. So again, these are all the things that we have to kind of weigh and juggle in terms of how much money does each individual project get, which projects do we want to prioritize, all those kinds of things. And then the last thing I want to point out on the slide, if you look at that total dollar amount, total funding requested for these projects, is a little north of $38 million there. So keep that number in mind. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So the total amount of funding that we received this year from the state is about 27 million. And so, like I said, we can only spend what we receive. And so we can't fund every last project to the total dollar amount that's been requested. We kind of have to pare that number back down to the available funds that we have. There's some opportunities, sometimes other funding sources become available over the course of this process. And so, you know, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with the team that I work with to make sure that we're spending dollars as efficiently as possible and getting a broad and representative amount of projects that both reflect community priorities and are most beneficial in terms of improving air quality. Next slide, please. So what is that work that's going on behind the scenes, right? So in order to calculate how much money any individual project gets, we have to gather a lot of documentation from these applicants. So if you think about replacing an old truck, we have to have information on what that truck is, what type of engine it has, how old it is, how many miles it has on it, all that kind of stuff. And so it's a lot of back and forth with the applicant. Hey, can you send us this vehicle report, or send us a quote for the new vehicle you want to purchase, all those kinds of things. So it's, you know, this is a pretty busy time of year for the team to get in touch with all these applicants, crunch these numbers, all that kind of stuff. And so they're working on that. And once we kind of finalize all those numbers, we can determine which projects are eligible, how much funding they can receive. We have to sort them by location because, like I mentioned a minute ago, we have to spend a certain percentage of these funds within certain neighborhoods and communities. And so it's really just kind of a process of sorting and resorting and figuring out, you know, what's the best use of all these different dollars for all these different projects. But once we decide which projects we want to move forward with, that's when we're going to draft and execute contracts with these approved applicants. And those contracts essentially lay out a checklist of milestones. And as once the applicant or the contractor at that point completes all those milestones, that's when we can pay them for their project and they can continue moving forward. There's a long period where the contract is still effective, where they have to report back to us over time just to make sure that they're staying in compliance with the project requirements. And then, you know, throughout that process, we want to continue to update the CSC. I mentioned that participatory budgeting turns into a kind of cyclical process, right? Where we're hearing about priorities from you, we're choosing projects, and then we're reporting back to you on which projects we received, and then we repeat that cycle. And so, you know, what the priorities were this year that you all selected and prioritized and told us about through that survey, we're going to continue to have those types of conversations over this year, next year, et cetera. So we can continue to do our best to reflect with the projects that we choose the needs of the community. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, this is a pretty quick update. There's a lot of work going on right now, and I will definitely give further updates in the future as we get to the next stages of this process. But my email is up here on the screen. Jazz posted it in the chat as well. Thank you, Jazz. We also have a general inbox email here, so you can reach me through either of those. The team checks that general inbox, and then I check, of course, my email every day. So if you have questions that come up later, feel free to email me. That's what we're here for, whether you're an applicant or just curious about types of projects and our progress and all that kind of stuff. Happy to answer questions, but of course, we have plenty of time right now. If anybody has questions right at the moment, feel free to raise your hand or jump on the microphone and let me know if you have any questions. Jack?
Jack, I see your hand. So I'm going to go back because I feel like the previous slide, I think, is a good slide to stop on. So Jack, I see your hand if you want to jump in.
Yes, thanks a lot. And thanks for the report. It's nice to get the reminder on what kind of money we're talking about here. Is there what point do you think, Kevin, that the district will be in a position to report back on some of these investments that are being made, specifically with regard to emissions eliminated or emissions reduced, that sort of thing? When, you know, what's the general benefit then, type of thing?
Yeah, so I think I'll kind of frame this in last year's round of applications. So in 2024, we opened our application. This is before I started, so some of these dates might be a tick off, but I believe we opened our application around February of 2024, got a bunch of applications. Some contractors are really quick. You know, we have people that have done the process before, so they know what documents we need. And so we were able to get them under contract quickly, but some took all the way into this year to finally get all those last steps checked off so we could sign a contract and get their project started. But as far as when we can report back on emission reductions, it's kind of a two-piece answer. One part is, hey, we get that old vehicle off the road, so it's no longer emitting. And so then over the course of that project life, which is how we calculate the emission reductions, we're continuing to monitor. That's what the reports are, that they have to continue reporting to us over the course of the contract, usage. So for a truck, it would be number of miles driven, or for a forklift, they have an hour meter on the forklifts, telling us how often or how many hours that forklift was operating. And so we continue to track that over time, and then we essentially crunch those numbers and have emission reductions. And so it's kind of an ongoing process of calculating emissions. We report those back to the state each year as well, as sort of progress reports. So for the 2025 projects, it'll still be a little while before we can really have any sort of explicit numbers as far as emission reductions. But if it would be interesting, we could probably go back and look at projects we funded in the past, and talk a little bit about those, and get a better sense to you and to the steering committee about, what projects are moving forward, I guess, successfully, and what types of emission reductions we're seeing. One last point I want to make is that infrastructure projects throw a wrench in all of this, because there's no direct emission reductions from an electric charging station, right? But there are obviously indirect emission reductions there by people using cleaner vehicles more and more frequently as we have more charging available. So I hope that answered your question. Let me know if there's extra pieces to that you would like me to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. That's exactly what I was wondering. And so at least for me, I would love to hear back when you do begin to have some data and some that you can share from previous years' investments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, so I've been in this role about 9 months now. I'm starting to really get my feet under me. And so, starting to know where all these things are that I can look for stored internally. So, yeah, I think in the future, I'll have a much more, this was, like I said, a pretty quick kind of high level overview of where kind of a snapshot of where we're at right now. But yeah, I agree that it would be helpful to kind of go over historically what these programs have done, even back several years up till now, and then that'll kind of give us an idea of where we're heading moving forward.
Terrific. Yeah, I think it'd be exciting. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. Shalom, I see your hand up.
Yeah, that was a great question, Jack. I'm wondering, and I should know the answer to this, Kevin, but when are those annual reports due to CARB? And that's one part of the question. The second part is, I'm wondering if it would be good, let's say the month after they're due, if we could get in a rhythm of providing a presentation, at least on the emission reductions that are noted in those CARB reports. I know it won't be comprehensive because emission reductions is ongoing for a lot of these investments, but yeah, I'm wondering about like what month is that, and then if we could maybe, as part of that participatory budgeting process, include on our kind of like frequent check-in timeline, an update on that report.
Yeah, great question, Salim. So each program is a little different. I mentioned that there's the Moyer bucket of funding, there's the Community Air Protection bucket of funding. Moyer is going to be due in a few weeks here. That's something that Kathy and I are currently working on, making sure to get that report ready in time. Community air protection has these more frequent reports. I think it used to be every 6 months, and I think they just changed it to annually. I want to say September is when those ones are due, but I'd have to double check on that. But yeah, Moyer's due actually very soon here, very timely. And I agree that, just big picture as part of participatory budgeting, that it would be good to, have that be more routine and a little bit more regular. One of the tricky parts of that is not so much the reporting, that's kind of the same every year, but when the grants get sent out to us, it's supposed to be once per year, but with working with the state and all these different districts, it kind of gets pushed back and pushed back. So it's sometimes it's after 13 months or 14 months. And so that part can get thrown off to where it's not a very precise, regular interval. Not sure that would really matter so much for this question, but just to kind of include that piece of information. But yeah, so we can talk about timing as far as maybe a Moyer specific update and then a community air protection specific update or something along those lines. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Shalom. And then I see Brisa from our team from facilitation. I think, Brisa, you have a question as well?
Yeah, I had a question. Thanks, Kevin, for your presentation. You mentioned that one of the priorities that the CSC members gave was urban greening and tree planting, but there were no applications for this specific priority. Is your team doing some sort of assessment to figure out why there were no applications for this priority? Is it that the requirements to apply for this were too complicated? Like, what is APCD doing to sort of respond to the gap in this priority? And if there are any accompanying programs to sort of respond to that priority?
It's a really good question, Brisa. Thank you. So if I back up to kind of what we do once we get those priorities from the steering committee, we perform outreach, right? So for things like trucks and school buses, it's kind of obvious. We put flyers together, we take them to dealerships, we take them to school districts, all the people that may be interested in purchasing trucks, so shipping companies, etc. So for tree planting, it was tricky to figure out who to talk to about that. And I had a meeting with the city of San Diego because they're more responsible for a lot of the land that we would want to essentially target with these projects. And they run their own program. Obviously, City of San Diego is separate from county, and Air Pollution Control District is separate from the county in a way. And so there's obviously a lot of different government agencies that big picture need to be better about communicating with each other. But I think that might be the challenge right now, is just figuring out, who do we talk to? Do we, it didn't work this year, right? We didn't get applications. So maybe next year, do we go to landscaping companies and say, hey, do you want to do a project somewhere? Can we partner with you and the city and find locations, in the Portside community where this could be a really valuable project? But a lot of those conversations are ongoing as far as, what was successful about our outreach this year, what was unsuccessful, urban greening being one of those categories, and figuring out what we can do better next year. And so right now, like I said, we're right in the middle of kind of application processing, but it's going to be a conversation as far as what didn't work with our outreach and what can we tweak and do better next time.
So, Kevin, just adding on that, because I feel like there's a good segue there for, like, is there an opportunity for the CSC members? We have a lot of folks that are super connected, doing a lot of great work on the community. Is there an opportunity for the CSC members to support that outreach when it comes to then reaching out to these folks? I know we've heard a couple of different things come up at previous meetings about, like, just being a little bit more proactive with the schools and kind of some other community partners that might be doing this type of work itself as well. Is there an opportunity there, I think, for the CSC to
Yeah, that's another really good question. I keep forgetting that Kearns West has been on for maybe 2 months now. So I did do a sort of ahead of, I think, as part of that survey we did, or maybe 1 month later, I presented saying, hey, we're about to open our application. Here's, the type of funding we have, the type of projects that we can fund. We need your help getting the word out. And so being a little bit more clear about that, and maybe even, I think that we have breakout groups pretty frequently where we'll talk and have more specific conversations about how to get that outreach really much more targeted. Because to your point, the CSE is going to know more as far as within the specific community, who to talk to, who can do these projects, where these projects should be targeted, et cetera. And so maybe having a little bit more proactive ahead of time discussions with the breakout groups, the dedicated subcommittees, I think is the word we're using. That will probably be part of the strategy moving forward as well. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to get all of this funding out the door. And so the best way to do that is to just have a lot of applicants, a lot of different varied types of projects that are all beneficial in their own way.
Kevin, Shalom, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was just gonna add a comment in terms of outreach. We did a lot of the Office of Environmental Justice specifically, and Kevin and Incentives did a lot of really targeted outreach and intentional outreach to the local school districts, and as a result, I think, like you said, I think there was like 10 indoor air filtration. I believe those are all, or maybe the majority, are from local schools / school districts, which is really, really exciting. So a lot of our outreach effort, in addition to kind of the more traditional participants in the program, like heavy duty diesel trucks, the port, etc. A lot of that really intentional outreach was towards the local school district, as it was really one of the highest priorities for this particular CSC, and also international border CSC as well. I believe many of those applications are I don't know the breakdown, so we'd have to, once we get all the application information, but like where exactly the school districts are. But so there has been ongoing outreach, and trying to also think of like maybe the untraditional applicants who maybe wouldn't have heard of this program that would be eligible, that are also in alignment with the CERP and also CSC priorities.
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of add on to that a little bit, Shalem. So two things. One, so we received 10 applications, but I think one of those applications was for, I'm gonna say 17 different schools that wanted air filters. And so, one application doesn't mean one filter or one school. It can be a number of them. And so, and we're hoping, we actually have never done the air filter projects before in years past. We never funded those before. And so we're really excited that, this could be kind of a launching off point where more and more schools start to hear about this. And so next year, and Shalem has already helped start a lot of these conversations, is to get even more schools involved in applying and getting more air filters in the schools. Because indoor air quality is also, an issue. And so anywhere where we can reduce exposure to harmful pollution is a good thing.
Monse, I see your hand up.
Sí, estoy de acuerdo que sí es bueno enfocarse también en las escuelas, porque pues hay un alto índice en nuestras comunidades con niños con asma. Entonces, es importante, ¿no? Cuidar la salud de esos niños, y por otro lado, pues sí se ocupa que las personas que somos de la comunidad y que nos conocen, ¿verdad? También en las escuelas, llevemos la información. Creo que también eso les daría más confianza a los distritos. Regularmente los distritos escolares tienen sus reuniones donde se puede hacer pues algún tipo de presentación para explicarles este programa. Gracias.
Gracias,
Yeah.
Monse.
Absolutely, completely agree, and that'll be kind of part of what Shalem has been working on with me over the past couple months, is making sure that we're getting out way ahead of this. So it's not, hey, we have our applications open in a week. It's, hey, next year we're going to be doing this program. We want you to be aware well in advance so that you're ready. As soon as that application opens, you have all your documentation, you're ready to apply. And so absolutely, Montserrat and the rest of the CSC, we want you to be involved in that as well, so that we can get materials to you, information to you, so that whenever these school board meetings are happening, that you have the information you need to also encourage them to apply. Because, you know, as many trusted voices as we can have in the community helping us get the word out is going to be extremely helpful. So yeah, thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Kevin. And I do see a comment in the chat from Sayatsi Carrillo. Comment is National City District is in National City preschool, 6th grade, highest pollution rates in National City. So I think identifying a specific school district itself with that level of pollution.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to encourage any and all schools and school districts, and even libraries and community centers, any gathering space, especially with young people or elderly, that to reach out to them, make sure that they're aware, you know, moving forward, even if it's not this year, that this funding is available for them to, you know, have these projects move forward and improve improve the air quality in the buildings, outside of the buildings, both and.
Thank you, Kevin. So I want to see if there's any other raised hands, any other questions for Kevin. We have his contact information on here on screen, both his email and then also general inbox. So I'm going to look around, see if there's anyone with the raised hand. So a reminder, if you do need to raise your hand to make a comment, it should be in the reaction button at the very bottom of your screen. Click there, you should be able to see the raised hand feature. But I don't see anyone yet. I don't see any comments in the chat. So I think with that, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. I think we'll be getting an update from you at some point, I think in the near future, I think. So I think we'll give notice of that to the group itself, I think, when you'll be providing that update. But with that, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everybody.
So with that, we're actually going to be moving towards the end of our meeting today. So we do want to see if there are any updates from folks, any public comment at this moment. We open up the floor for folks. So if you have any public comment, please raise your hand and we should be able to unmute yourself, but I have not seen anyone at this moment. So we'll keep moving with the end of our meeting today. So some quick next steps. One, please register for the July 22nd meeting. Again, the meeting is going to be virtual. So that as a reminder, we'll be here on Zoom again. Second note on here is you should be receiving these weekly digests. So these have community updates, reminders, project partners are reaching out, sometimes sending information about events, meetings that are happening, or opportunities for participation. So yeah, please, look at those emails. If there's anything that you want to add, do reach out. We can also include that information on here, something that's happening that you think the community would find helpful to share. So before we close, I want to see if there's any other comments or any other announcements. Not seeing anything. If there's nothing further, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
This is Maritza. I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
This is Jack Munger. I second.
We have Maritza as first and Jack as a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. None. The ayes have it. So with that, we're going to be wrapping up today's meeting. Thank you everyone for being here with us. Today was a short meeting, so hopefully folks can grab an early dinner. Thank you everyone for being here, and we'll see folks next month. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias a todos.
Everybody, thank you.